If you're ready to wake up, you're going to wake up. And if you're not ready, you're going to stay pretending that you're just a poor little me. And since you all here and engaged in this sort of inquiry and listening to this sort of lecture, I assume that you're all on the process of waking up. Or else you're teasing yourselves with some kind of flirtation with waking up, which you're not serious about. But I assume maybe you are not serious, but sincere that you are ready to wake up. So then, when you're in the way of waking up and finding out who you really are, what you do is what the whole universe is doing at the place you call here and now. You are something the whole universe is doing in the same way that a wave is something that the whole ocean is doing. The real you is not a puppet which life pushes around. The real, deep down you is the whole universe. We can't describe a human being without also describing their environment. You can't say what a person is doing without also saying what the world around them is doing. Now, just imagine for a moment, you couldn't see anything up here except me. No curtains behind me, no stage, no microphone, only me. You could only see me. That was all you could see. What would you be looking at? You wouldn't really be seeing me at all, because you wouldn't see my edges. And my edges are rather important. They define the shape of me. But those edges would be exactly where your eyesight ends. And to truly see me, you need to see what surrounds me. And there lies a clue of which we are mostly ignorant. You see, once you begin to realize that you can't exist apart from the world around you, that your very edges are shaped by everything you're not, a deeper question begins to stir. If I'm not just this body, and I'm not just this name, then who or what am I really? And this is where the game begins. And so, because you're playing hide and seek, even though you can't or won't admit it, you are intentionally forgetting who you truly are, what you actually are, and the understanding that your essential self is the very root of the universe. What the philosophers call the ground of being is something you carry, as the Germans say, as a Hintergedanke. A Hintergedanke is a thought tucked way, way, way back in your mind, somewhere far in the background, a truth you feel deep inside, but just can't quite face. So then, in a way, in order for that to rise to the surface, in order for you to know that it's true, you have to be shaken out of your own game. Now, the issue is this. In our experience, we make a distinction between what we do and what happens to us. There are certain actions we label voluntary. We feel in charge of those, but set against that are all the things we consider involuntary. Yet that dividing line between the two, it's actually quite arbitrary. Take this, for example. When you move your hand, you believe you're choosing to open it or to close it. But then ask yourself, how do you choose? When you decide to open your hand, do you first choose to make the decision? You don't, do you? You simply decide. But how exactly do you do that? And if you don't know how you do it, is it voluntary or involuntary? Take breathing, for instance. You can sense that you're breathing on purpose, that you can control it. But when you stop paying attention, it continues on its own. So, is that voluntary or involuntary? We end up with a very arbitrary sense of what we call the self. We say, this part of my activity, that's what I do. But that doesn't usually include breathing, not most of the time. It doesn't include your heartbeat. It doesn't include the work of the glands or the process of digestion. It doesn't include how your bones grow or how your blood flows. Are you doing those things, or are you not? Now, when you begin to truly be with yourself and recognize that you are all of yourself, something quite strange begins to unfold. You realize that your body already knows. You're one with the universe. In other words, what you call the involuntary flow of your blood is happening in the same rhythm as the shining of the stars. And the instant you see that you are the one circulating your blood, you'll also see that you, in just the same way, are shining the sun. Because this body of yours isn't something apart from the rest of it all. It's moving right along with everything else, just as waves move with the sea. Your body is inseparable from the whole energy field of the cosmos, and it's all you. Only you're playing the game, the journey, the spit over. But as I try to explain, there are in physical reality no such things as separate events. So then remember also when I tried to work towards the definition of omnipotence. Omnipotence is not knowing how everything is done. It's just doing it. You don't have to translate it into language. Look, supposing when you got up in the morning, you had to switch your brain on, and you have to think and do as a deliberate process, waking up all the circuits that you need for active life during the day. Why you never get done? Because you have to do all those things at once. How can a centipede control 100 legs at once? Because it doesn't think about it. And so in the same way, you are unconsciously performing all the various activities of your organisms. Because what a consciousness is simply a sort of specialized form of awareness. When you look around the room, you are conscious of as much as you can notice. And you see an enormous number of things which you don't notice. It's, for example, I look at a girl here, and somebody asked me later, what was she wearing? I may not know, although I've seen, because I didn't attend, that I was aware. You see? And perhaps, if I could under hypnosis be asked this question, well, I would get my conscious attention out of the way. Through being in the hypnotic state, I could recall what dress she was wearing. So then, just in the same way as you don't, focus your attention on how you make your thyroid gland function. So, in the same way, you don't have any attention focused on how you shine the sun. So then, let me tie this into the whole mystery of birth and death, which understandably baffles people immensely. Because if you're going to understand what the self really is, you have to see that it doesn't need to remember anything. Just as you don't need to know how you manage your thyroid gland, it simply happens. So then, when you die, you won't have to endure some kind of eternal non-existence. That's not something you experience. A lot of people are frightened by the idea that when they die, they'll be trapped in some endless blackness, locked away in a dark void forever. But here's where it gets interesting. This is the essence of yoga, of inner realization. Try to imagine what it would be like to fall asleep and never wake up. Just really sit with that. Children even wonder about this. It's one of life's profound questions. What would it be like to go to sleep and never wake again? Now, if you let yourself truly consider that, something begins to shift, because that question flips itself around and asks you, what was it like to wake up after never having gone to sleep? That was when you were born. You see, you can't have an experience of nothing. Nature doesn't allow for a vacuum in experience. So after death, the only thing that can happen is the same kind of event as birth. In other words, we all understand quite well that after people die, other people are born. And they're all you, only you could only experience it one at a time. Everybody is I, and wheresoever beings exist throughout all galaxies, it doesn't make any difference. You are all of them, and when they come into being, that's you coming into being. You know that very well. Only, you don't have to remember the past. In the same way you don't have to think about how you work your thyroid gland, or whatever else it is in your organism. You don't have to know how to shine the sun. You just do it, like you breathe. Doesn't it really astonish you that you are the fantastically complex thing, and that you're doing all of this, and you never had any education in how to do it? You never learned to pursue this miracle. Well, the point is that from a strictly physical, scientific standpoint, this organism is a continuous energy with everything else that's going on. And if I am my foot, then I am the sun. Only we're stuck in this narrow perspective, this limited point of view that says, no, I'm just this thing inside the body, the ego. But that's the joke. The ego is nothing more than the spotlight of conscious attention. It's like the radar on a ship. The radar's job is to scan the surroundings, look for obstacles, detect danger. It's a trouble detector. In the same way, conscious attention is a function of the brain that scans the environment, searching for anything unusual or threatening. But when you start to identify with the radar, when you mistake that tiny scanning mechanism for you, then of course you end up feeling like you're constantly in danger, always in a state of tension, of anxiety. But the moment you stop identifying with the ego and begin to realize that you are the whole organism, if you realize that the first thing, how harmonious it all is, because your organism is a miracle of harmony, all this thing functioning together, even those copper schools and creatures that are fighting each other in the bloodstream and eating each other up. If they weren't doing that, you wouldn't be healthy. So what is discord at one level of your being is harmony at a higher level. And you begin to realize that, and you begin to be aware too, that the discords of your life, the discourse of people's life, which are a fight at one level, at a higher level of the universe, are healthy and harmonious. And you suddenly realize that everything that you are and do is at that level as magnificent and as free of any blemish. As the patterns in waves, the markings in marble, the way a cat moves, and that this world is really okay and can't be anything else because otherwise it couldn't exist. But the reality underneath physical existence, or which really is physical existence, because in my philosophy, there's no difference between the physical and the spiritual. These are absolutely out-of-date categories. It's all processed. It isn't stuff on the one hand and form on the other. It is pattern. Life is pattern. It is a dance of energy. So I will never invoke spooky knowledge, that is to say that I've had a private revelation, or that I have sensory vibrations going on a plane, which you don't have. Everything is standing right out in the open. It's just the question of how you look at it. So you do discover, when you realize this, the most extraordinary thing to me, that I never cease to be flabbergasted about whenever it happens to me. So some people will use a symbolism of the relationship of God to the universe, where in God is a brilliant light, only somehow veiled, hiding underneath all these forms that you see as you look around you. So far, so good. But the truth is funnier than that. And it is that you are looking right at the brilliant light now. The very experience you're having, this ordinary everyday awareness in which you pretend you're not it, that is the light. It's no different at all. And when you finally see it, you laugh yourself silly. That's the great discovery.